Today's goddess Kali has evolved from many woman-centered practices and philosophies, some of which are very ancient. And one of them is Yakshi. And Yakshi again is sourced from very ancient practices that had to do with a worldview or a philosophy or actually a practice, because it was from the practices that the philosophies were sourced in those times, but a practice that really centered the body, nature, the senses, the feelings, as the woman-centered experience of reality. Today, Yakshis have become quite dangerous, evil, tree-dwelling deities that are exquisitely beautiful but very dangerous in their sensuality and beauty. So they are understood today as these deities that seduce unwary travelers, usually men, and they can actually devour them. So they're bloodthirsty. So they are really feared today. But Yakshis were something far more exquisite and insightful and really best known through their embodied practices. Before I actually talk about the Yakshi, I'd like to talk about the other element in the Yakshi space, because there is an interplay between the two that actually is the full constellation of Yakshi. Usually, the ancient sculptures of Yakshis are shown as standing on Makara. Makara today is understood as a crocodile, but the Makara, the ancient Makara, was a water creature, but it had elements of several other animals. So it could have feline claws, it could have the head sometimes of an elephant or other animals. So it was like this creature that didn't quite know what it was. So it had these multiple identities and multiple animal forms that came together to form this Makara. We know about the feeling constellation of Makara actually through the dance text, Natya Sastra, which also, by the way, is where we find out about the Yakshi practice. But Makara, according to the Natya Sastra, the Makara Shila, which is a woman, again, the woman here meaning woman as nature, woman as the movement of nature, of which we are all part, which was seen as woman, the goddess, the woman. So the Makara Shila is someone that is big-headed, that has a thick neck, that is cruel, that is crying and wailing and complaining and shouting all the time, and that is torn and divided and fragmented. Now, when you start moving this Makara Shila, even think about when you feel like you have this head that is thick, immovable, a neck that is immovable. When you move it, you begin to sense that this is the world of a mind-led experience of reality. We are so in the head, and we are not fluid. We don't like fluidity. We want to make things static. We want to pin it down. We want to control it. And we are constantly resisting. We are complaining. We are wailing against reality. And we are torn, we're fragmented, we are divided because we are constantly obsessed with this activity of dividing up reality, categorizing it, naming it. And we are cruel because of the fear, because we are, this fear of never actually being able to control, or somewhere in ourselves knowing that we can't really control it. And the fear makes us competitive, makes us ruthless in defending what we think is our own. Of course, there is no morality in this space. The Makara, the Yakshi, they are just recognitions of experiences of reality. And we can't know the Yakshi without the Makara, and we can't know the Makara without the Yakshi. So this is the Makara. And then the Yakshashila, or the temperament, or the movement, or the feeling of the Yakshi, is the first physicality of the Yakshi is the Tribhangi. The Tribhangi is the three-bend position in dance. The head, the hips, and the knees. You will see this in many of the traditional sculptures, the three-bend. And when you move that, you experience the body itself as fluid. It's not like the head, the thick head and the neck holding itself against all movement of reality, but it is actually pliable. It moves like the trees of which the Yakshis are associated. It's like the movement of the tree itself. The tree, we think the trees has the solid shape, but if you just look at the shapes of the trees, there is such movement even in what seems to be this solidity. And it's this exquisite invitation to perceive the nature of reality beyond our definition of what is solid, what's not solid, what's fluid, what's not fluid. So this Tribhangi, often it's like it follows the curves of the tree itself. And then the Yakshi is got beautiful limbs. Again, limbs that are fluid, that are like the branches of the tree that move in the wind. She is expansive, like expanding with the sap. So Yakshi is the sap of the tree and also the breath. But what does it do is that it's expansive. It's like the breath expands. And the Yakshi has Medha. So Medha is often translated as intelligence, but it's a very specific kind of intelligence. It is the intelligence that is often attributed in the Rig Veda, for example, to goddesses like Saraswati, or even there is a goddess called Medha herself. And Medha is an intelligence that can see what is behind form, can see beyond the form, beyond what is obvious, what we think is evident. It is that ability to see behind that, behind the word, behind the form. That is Medha, and Yakshi has Medha. So you see, when the Makara and the Yakshi are in interplay, the stiffness of the head and the neck, that inability to bend, our thoughts, our own intelligence, and with the Yakshis and the sensuousness and the beauty, that exquisite sensuality that comes when we are able to be in that Yakshi space. But today, we are afraid of that sensuality. And so Yakshis have become objects of fear. They have become objects to be wary of, because we are actually wary of that sensuality, that beauty that is unleashed, that beauty that is actually beyond form, that beauty that is reality itself, nature and reality. Because in the Makara space, we congeal and we contract to separate ourselves, to define ourselves, and then to defend that definition. And the invitation is to be the Trubhangi and the sensuousness of Yakshi. And you can see how this flows into the Kali space, into the sensuousness of Kali, but also the stories about the danger of her sensuousness and how she needs to be controlled, usually by her male consort. So, in so many ways, we have contracted this practice about the sensuousness and expansiveness of reality of nature, which is, of course, reality itself, into something that needs to be controlled and needs to be feared.